Hey everybody, welcome back to Breakfast with Bob from the Challenge Championship and from the Collins Cup. We're brought to you by Master Spa's Hyperice Form Smart Swim Goggles, UCAN, HOKA, Oni, Clash USA, and our Challenged Athletes Foundation. Our next guest, seriously, he's probably had one of the best years, definitely best year of his career, Mr. Sam Long. How you doing, Sam?
Pretty good. It's good to be on the show. It's good to have a championship event. Obviously, we don't have our main event this year, so,
right?
But it's great to be here, and it's shaping up to all the hype and
yeah,
all the expectations and all the top athletes here. And
when you look at on paper, you look at Team Europe and you're going, okay, this is their ball game. But when I look at the Americans, and you guys there's really no reason based on this, how things are set up, that you guys can't be a factor here.
That's what we're all hoping. That's definitely what we're all hoping. I agree. On paper, Team Europe's got, on the men's side, so they've got all the Ironman world champions since 2014.
Right.
So that's a pretty dominating force. And the women's team, I think, is even more incredible, to be honest.
Yeah.
But that's what racing's about. We don't just write the names on a paper and say it's done already. We got to show up and see what happens.
When I look at your season, and I just love the variety and just everything from your second place with the sprint finish with your buddy, Mr. Lionel Sanders. That St. George race was a classic. And then I didn't realize that your first ever pro race was as an Xterra guy way back in the day.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
Right? And you got second then.
I got second then.
And you got second again this time.
This time, yeah. And we went a lot faster this time. The levels gotten raised. And, of course, back then I was an Xterra racer.
20 years old.
20 years old, yeah. But I'd mountain biked all the time then and was really preparing for it. And this time I was in Ironman training and got the mountain bike out a few times, but it was a great experience. And
did your dad race too?
He did. Yep.
How fun is that?
Yeah, he won his age group. And he's going to be at St. George as well.
So
Worlds.
Did he get you into mountain biking or into all this stuff?
Yep, absolutely. So, that's how I guess I got started training for Ironmans at the age of 13. We have a house up in the mountains, a little town called Crested Butte.
Oh yeah.
And it sits at 10,000 feet. And my dad would take me up there, and he would treat me like an adult at 12 or 13. And he'd say, "Oh, I've got this epic bike loop. Let's go out and do this." And next thing you know, I'm out on my mountain bike for 6 hours. And my dad's was maybe 35 or 40.
Was he doing Ironman stuff?
No, he was just a bike racer.
Just racing bikes.
Yeah,
okay.
He was racing Leadville 100 and all those events, and so and he's pushing me. And next thing, I'm out for 5 hours. And I remember very distinctly this one day we did this absolutely epic day. It was maybe 6 hours, 13 years old. We get back and then there's live music there in this town every Monday night.
Yes.
So it must have been a Monday. And he goes, "Oh, I want to go listen to some music." And I'm like, "Dad, I am starving." So he buys me a slice of pizza, and then I just go, and it's in the park, and I just slept in the middle of the park, in the middle of the live concert.
While he's listening to music.
And drinking beer, exactly.
And you're how old?
I was 12 or 13.
I think that's child abuse. I think he could have gone to jail.
8th or 9th grade, exactly.
So the other race that really impressed me was Coeur d'Alene, because you couldn't just race that. You had to be strategic. You had to be monitoring your fuel intake throughout the day and monitoring the heat and not going too crazy. Was that tough for you? Because that's not just going and racing. That's thinking a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point, and that's a very different way than I normally race.
Exactly.
Right? We usually see me out there on the course, and I go off guts, and I go off instinct, and I go off, getting to the front and staying at the front and covering moves or making my own moves. And Coeur d'Alene was just nothing like that because of the heat and because of the course too. It's not an easy course, and so thankfully I visualized going into it that it was going to be just sort of this stay within yourself all day. And I even told myself it's 7 hours of pacing and practicing and being disciplined, and then you get 1 hour to 30 minutes of racing. And so that's exactly what it was, because then you get to 30K on the run, and next thing you know, all of a sudden it becomes real, and it's yeah, and you still get there eventually, but it takes 7 hours.
Did you feel at one point you were going to have a rematch of the St. George thing with Lionel when you guys were together there for a little bit in the run?
Yeah, I mean, not just at one point. I thought for most of the race still, because Lionel swam ahead of me, and then I could tell he was kind of waiting for me a little bit on the bike.
Yeah.
He just didn't want to make all the moves yet, be by himself, and then, I caught up, and then we made a break from everyone else, and then I got a bit of a flat tire, but it sealed itself, and then he was feeling good, and so then he was actually almost dropping me on the bike, and I was hanging on for dear life, but thankfully then I got in a bunch of calories, and then, like 100 miles, he then started to fade a little bit on the bike. And then I said, okay, if he's fading, I got to go now. So then I got a little lead. And then he, bridged back up to me and on the run at 9 miles. But, then fell off. And I guess it's like, it goes to show how hard something like the Iron War is that we were just talking.
Yes.
It's one thing to go toe-to-toe, like Lionel and I did every step of a 70.3, but to do it for an Ironman it's a whole nother thing because you have to stay within yourself. And so, I mean, I can't even imagine what that would have been like for those two guys.
And try not to get caught up in that other person's race, right? And still do your own race, but knowing you can't really let them go.
Exactly. It's this totally bizarre balance, right? Between like, this is the guy I know is the main contender in the race. And it's like, I can't totally let them go, but I also can't like go out of myself and I have to do my own race. And it's striking that balance. And then it's especially striking that balance between 70.3 racing and Ironman racing. And it's, with this huge variety of racing, I've just been learning a lot about, when to race, when to stay within yourself, when to trust your instincts, when to just stick to your plan, nutrition, watts, pace, and all that.
So with Kona not happening until February, how does that change things for you? I know St. George was a big focus already, but to me, I'm looking at it going, okay, you had to be thinking St. George is only 3 weeks before Kona, and you want both of them to be your focus, but they couldn't be if they're that close together.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, me and my coach, we worked a lot on like, we have to pick one and we have to decide. And I was still always going to do both, but we have to pick one to really focus on.
Yep.
And after a lot of thinking and going back and forth between the two, I finally said, okay, I'm actually going to focus on St. George. And a lot of that's because of my age at 25.
Sure.
I think I have a long time to prioritize Kona. And
yes,
so
you do.
I want to actually focus on that speed a bit more and, just keep the speed going. St. George is a great course for me. It's one of the few courses where you don't get some giant bike pack on the flats at 70.3 Worlds and people sit in and save 60 watts. And so it's a good course. So I said, okay, I'm going to focus on that. And it's as if I had a crystal ball now, right?
Exactly.
And of course, it's still a huge disappointment for Kona to get canceled. I was very much looking forward to going as a pro for my first time. I mean, you only get your Kona virginity once, right?
Exactly.
And, I was looking forward to that, but I've pivoted now, and I'm going to do Ironman Chattanooga and try and qualify for Kona.
Get that out of the way. That way, you're in for 2021. Or you're in for February, and you could be in for 2022 at the same time. If
exactly.
You go do well at Chattanooga.
Exactly.
Which, was that your first Ironman win?
First Ironman win and first 70.3 win. So it's
a good city for you.
It's a great city for me. And they haven't had any other pro races there since I last won there for the first time in 2019 because of COVID. And then they weren't slotted for pro races this year. And so, I mean, I'm actually almost more happy about the schedule currently.
Sure. I think it's better because it's hard to, as much as you want to focus on 70.3 Worlds, you got that first Ironman coming up in 3 weeks. So it's in the back of your head, makes it tough. Now you don't have to worry about that. Yeah,
exactly. And then I guess the other benefit is if I can qualify, then I'd love to do Challenge Roth next summer. So
see, that's the thing. If you have that out of the way, you can pick and choose wherever you want to go. There's some other cool races out there.
Exactly. So then, I mean, doesn't get any better. Then I would do 2 Konas and a Roth in 1 year. I mean, how do you get a better schedule than that?
So you win Boulder 70.3 and break the course record, right?
Yep. Yeah.
That's pretty fun. That's your hometown?
Yeah, it was amazing in the hometown and just all the crowd out there. And I mean, to be honest with that race, I was so focused on this in St. George.
Yes.
The celebrations weren't what they would normally be, but it was just a testament that my training is on track for this race. And
Yes.
with the potential matchups coming up that I'm hoping for and that
What are you hoping for matchup wise? You want Jan?
I don't want Jan and Lionel, and I mean pretty much the two biggest names in the sport, and
Sure.
then myself. And
Yeah.
and I've just been thinking about that for months. And at Boulder, it was just okay. How close can I get? And hopefully, it was a step in the right direction. And I mean, I'm certainly nervous if that matchup comes up. I'm certainly nervous, but also just super excited. And as a young 25-year-old to go up against
Yes.
I mean, these are like two untouchable gods in a head-to-head matchup on the biggest event of the year.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, you can't really dream that up.
So, just watching your maturation process over the last couple of years, you just seem so much. You've always been comfortable in your own skin, but you seem even more comfortable because you're comfortable with the plan. You're comfortable. You've got the right guidance with Ryan. How do you see yourself different than you were a year or two ago?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I've definitely I'm still the same person, but
Right.
just my approach has changed, and especially this year, like a year ago going into Daytona, I felt like I always had to say hey, look at me, I'm proving myself, and
Right.
I just proved myself here, and I just proved myself here, and now it's kind of like whether or not people think I have, I've kind of decided that
You have.
that doesn't really matter. If they don't think I have, then fine. If they think I have, then fine. But in my own heart, I've said, I'm a grade A pro. I'm here to stay, and I'm going to commit to the process long term. And it's helped with my sponsors too. I'm starting to get better financial support, and so it's I mean, a year ago too, it was even whoa, if I have one bad season,
You could be out of the sport.
I could be out of the sport, back to getting an office job,
Right.
But now I can say with 90% certainty, even if I had a bad year, that my sponsors would get behind me and
Right.
say, okay, it's just one bad year, we'll stand behind you. And so just being able to see that long-term view and have a coach, writing that long-term view plan as well, and all that's helping. And of course it helps, the more wins I think you can get in your belt, then the more it's just another notch to say, okay, I've made it, and I've made it again, and I've made it again, and let's focus on getting that next win.
Having a coach like a Ryan Bolton, who's performance director for USA Triathlon, who coaches obviously a lot of top Kenyan athletes, it's like when you have something in your life that you don't have to think about, that's a real positive. So for you, as a guy who could be that shiny object, that race is over there, I'm going to go do that one. Having somebody who is sort of at the wheel that understands what he's doing, and more importantly, understands you and how you work. How important has that been?
Yeah, it's just totally important. I mean, even with the Chattanooga decision, he was aiming more why don't you do something like Ironman California? And I sort of said, okay, I think that's a good idea, but my family and I were still going to Kona for vacation because they all planned it around the race.
Sorry, are you still going?
Yeah, I'm still going. Maybe I'll do the course on race day, but my whole family planned a whole vacation around this and spending time with me after, and they're like, there's no way you're not going now that it's canceled. So I said, okay, and it will be good to have a vacation. So I basically said, Ryan, my season's got to be over by October 9th now.
Yes.
And so then we repivoted and said, okay, Chattanooga looks pretty good, and with what I've done and how I train, he's like, it's doable. For most athletes, he says, for most athletes that wouldn't be doable 1 week after 70.3 Worlds, but for you and your training and how you are wired,
Right.
it's good. And then it sets me up for Kona in February. Great, because take a quick break in Kona, right?
In Kona.
Just have fun, swim with the turtles, bike the bike course.
You should do a back-to-back photo of yourself with yourself, right? And do the Sam Long challenge. I'm challenging Sam. I'm doing the Ironman on October 9th. It's me against me.
Exactly.
Have your videographer and go for it and set your own course record. I like that. You should do that.
I mean, I do remember this was back when I was a little crazier, and the last time we had Kona, right, which was 2019, I was there to watch the race and to learn the race, and I got so excited race morning after watching all the male pros come out of the swim and onto the bike, and I said, I'm going to go for a little bit of my long run. And I ended up running 25 miles on a Leahy Drive.
In 100-degree heat.
In 100-degree heat, and I had no aid stations either.
See, this way you've got your parents out there, right? You got the family to support you all day long.
Exactly.
I like that.
And yeah, so
You're going to be the only pro in Kona. I like it.
Yeah, so I'll win the
October
race no matter
9th.
what.
You
Now
got it.
I'll add that notch to my belt.
That'll be awesome. That is really, really fun. So now, are they having Xterra Worlds?
To be determined. Yeah.
Would you probably wouldn't be doing that with everything else you got going?
Not now, not
this
anymore.
year.
Originally,
Yeah.
I was
Just thinking
highly
about it.
considering it, but
Yeah.
I think, it's now 5 weeks after when Kona got canceled,
Yeah.
so I don't think it'll happen. I think it's unlikely enough to happen that I don't want to prepare and train for it.
So if we're having this conversation 2-3 years from now, and I'm introducing you, what new accolades am I saying about Sam Long 2-3 years from now?
Well, hopefully, I guess I'll just say hopefully a lot, and we'll leave it at that, because how we started, right? I said you can write things on pieces of paper and say this is the athlete, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter all the accolades. You got to get out there and you got to do it at the next race and the next race and the next race.
Yes.
And coming up on Saturday is a huge task for me and
Yes.
Team USA. And so let's not look to the future. Let's just look to Saturday.
The last time we were at one of these international type events was at Daytona, and a lot of the other athletes who had seen social media posts were going,
Yeah.
I'm here to shut up that Sam Long guy. He's got a big mouth, and I think people came away from that going, okay, this guy can produce, right? Because you were up there in the top 3 and top 5, high-fiving the crowd, just celebrating the moment and showing that you weren't intimidated by the moment or by the spotlight. Was that race sort of a turning point for you?
Absolutely, yeah. It's funny because I still feel a little bit of the same energy, like, that guy Sam Long, the guy with the big mouth from the USA, and let's shut him up and let's maybe almost embarrass him a little. And
Right.
But
That's
that's fine
cool.
because I almost like feeling that energy before a race because it goes, okay, I gotta perform and I gotta show that I gotta put my money where my mouth is, basically.
Well, but it also shows that you're sort of got a little place in somebody's head. If the fact that they're thinking about you,
Right.
you're sort of, you've rented a room right there where they're going, I'm going to take that Sam Long guy out. So they're thinking about you.
Yeah.
It's the best thing that you can have, man. You got that chip going anyways, but having the other guys discounting you and your talent, that's fuel.
Yeah, totally. I actually hadn't looked at it that way, but you're right.
Anytime they're talking about you, anytime
they're paying rent to Sam Long.
they're paying rent, and you just need to go collect on Saturday.
I gotta collect. Yeah, exactly.
Sam, I always enjoy chatting with you, bud. Thanks so much for taking time. Congratulations on everything you're doing. Your season has been spectacular. Just the variety of races, the way you've raced, watching you at Coeur d'Alene, and just it was like one of those things where you're watching, going, okay. Don't get carried away. Don't get carried away. Just as a viewer.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember I wanted to break 8 hours on that course, and I said, "Wow, if I could break 8 hours at Coeur d'Alene, that would be huge." And then, I'm halfway through that marathon, and I'm slightly on track, but it's a bit ambitious because I ended up going 8:07.
Yes.
And I was like, "Oh, it's gonna take a very fast marathon in this heat." And I just said, "Don't get carried away. You've got to win. Win the thing instead of setting some course record and potentially killing yourself and blowing up."
And getting carried away rather than having them carry you off on a stretcher rather than winning the freaking race because you're trying to go too fast. That's a sign of maturity.
Yeah, something like that.
Thank you, Sam. Always a pleasure to chat.
Thank you, Bob.
Sam Long has been our guest, everybody. Again, Breakfast with Bob. We are at the Challenge Championship and the Collins Cup. Hold on, everybody. We'll be right back.